Working Backwards: Insights, Stories, and Secrets from Inside Amazon by Colin Breyer and Bill Carr. Picture this. It's mid-October 2004. You're a senior executive at Amazon, riding high on the company's success, when an email from Jeff Bezos drops into your inbox like a bombshell. It's brief, urgent, and about to turn your world upside down. The message is simple. We should not be satisfied with our growth. This is a house-on-fire issue. We need a shipping membership program. Let's build and launch it by the end of the year. 11 weeks. That's all the time you have to invent, build, and launch a program that will fundamentally reshape the company, right in the middle of the holiday shopping frenzy. Most people would call this insane. A reckless pet project, a textbook example of poor planning. But here's the thing. This wasn't some impulsive whim. This was the result of months of intense debate, mountains of data analysis, and an obsessive focus on one simple question: what do our customers actually want? That urgent house-on-fire email sparked the creation of Amazon Prime, a service that would not only rescue the company's slowing growth, but completely redefine how the world shops online. So how does a company place a bet that massive that quickly? How does it evolve from a scrappy online bookstore into a global behemoth that does everything from cloud computing to Oscar-winning movies? Spoiler alert, it's not magic, luck, or even genius. It's a system, a collection of repeatable, scalable principles and practices embedded in the company's very DNA. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on that system. We're diving into Working Backwards, written by two Amazon veterans who weren't just observers but architects, Colin Breyer and Bill Carr. Colin served as Jeff Bezos' chief of staff, his literal shadow, during two of Amazon's most transformative years. Bill was a vice president who launched Prime Video and Amazon Music. These guys didn't just watch the show, they built the stage. This isn't just a collection of corporate war stories. It's an operating manual for a machine designed for one purpose: relentless invention. And here's my promise. By the end of this, you won't just understand Amazon's secrets. You'll walk away with a blueprint, a toolkit of practical, powerful ideas you can start using tomorrow to think more clearly, build more effectively, and lead with renewed purpose, no matter what you're creating. To understand how Amazon really works, you need to grasp the philosophy powering everything behind the scenes. It's almost shockingly simple. Jeff Bezos put it this way: we have an unshakable conviction that the long-term interests of shareowners are perfectly aligned with the interests of customers. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds like corporate fluff, the kind of thing you'd see on a motivational poster in a conference room. But at Amazon, it's treated like a law of physics. It means that instead of obsessing over competitors or squeezing out a bit more profit next quarter, you become obsessed with the customer. You start with their needs, problems, and desires, and work backwards from there. And you do it with a time horizon that would terrify most companies. You plant seeds knowing they might take 5, 7, even 10 years to bloom into mighty oaks. But here's the catch. A philosophy is just pretty words unless you can make it real, baking it into the daily actions of hundreds of thousands of people. This is where most companies crash and burn. They have good intentions. They declare, "We must try harder," or "Let's be more innovative." The authors of Working Backwards share something profound they learned at Amazon. Good intentions don't work. Mechanisms do. A mechanism is a repeatable process that transforms good intentions into reality. It's a system that reinforces culture even when the boss isn't watching. Over 2 decades, Amazon built a collection of powerful, interconnected mechanisms that form its unique operating system. And the foundation of that entire system? A set of 14 leadership principles. These aren't fuzzy corporate values gathering dust in a handbook. They're a living, breathing constitution. They're specific, actionable, and woven into every major process at the company, from your first job interview to the biggest strategic decisions. You don't memorize them at Amazon because you live them every single day. Take customer obsession, for example. Leaders start with the customer and work backwards. Or invent and simplify, which acknowledges that, quote, we may be misunderstood for long periods of time. There's bias for action, declaring that speed matters in business, and many decisions are reversible, like walking through a two-way door. And then there's one that sounds deceptively simple. Dive deep. It says leaders operate at all levels, stay connected to the details. No task is beneath them. This isn't about micromanaging. It's about seeking truth. The book shares a fantastic story about this principle in action. Jeff Bezos was doing his required 2-day customer service shift. Yes, even the chief executive had to do it. He listened to a call where a customer complained about damaged lawn furniture. The agent muted the line and told Jeff, I bet I know what product she's talking about. Pulling up a specific lawn chair on the website. She was right. This was happening constantly because of poor packaging. But she had no power to fix it. All she could do was apologize and ship a replacement. Jeff, having recently learned about Toyota's manufacturing system, had an insight. On Toyota assembly lines, any worker spotting a defect can pull the and-on cord, immediately stopping the entire production line. The problem gets swarmed and fixed before it spreads. Jeff said, we need an and-on cord for customer service. So they built one, a virtual button allowing any customer service agent to immediately pull a product from the website if they detected a recurring problem. That's dive deep in action. Finding a single customer problem and building a scalable mechanism to solve it forever. These principles give everyone a shared language and decision-making framework. But how do you ensure you're hiring people who'll actually live by them? This brings us to the first great mechanism, the hiring process, known as the bar raiser program. In the early days, Amazon grew so fast that, as one employee put it, we had new people hiring new people hiring new people. The risk was enormous. When you're desperate to fill a role, you fall prey to urgency bias, overlooking a candidate's flaws just to get someone in the seat. This is how companies dilute their talent pool over time. The bar raiser process was designed to prevent this tragedy. For every single interview loop, a special person gets assigned as the bar raiser. This is a trained, objective interviewer who's not the hiring manager and doesn't work on the team with the opening. Their sole purpose? Being the guardian of hiring standards. The name itself is a mandate. Every new hire should raise the bar, making the company stronger than before they arrived. The bar raiser has a superpower, the veto. They can single-handedly block any hire, even if the hiring manager is desperate to extend an offer. Now this sounds confrontational, but in practice the veto almost never gets used. Why? Because the bar raiser's real job is facilitating the decision-making process. They lead the debrief meeting after interviews, where everyone discusses the candidate. They use the Socratic method, asking probing questions to ensure decisions are based on data, not gut feelings or personal bias. They force the team to map the candidate's past behavior against the 14 leadership principles. This process is rigorous, it's slow, and initially many managers despised it. It felt like a roadblock. But they quickly learned that a bad hire costs infinitely more than an empty seat. The bar raiser program is a mechanism forcing long-term thinking into a process naturally biased toward short-term relief. It ensures that even during explosive growth, the company gets better, not just bigger. Okay, so you've hired a team of brilliant, principle-driven people. Now, how do you organize them to get things done without drowning in bureaucracy? This was Amazon's next great challenge. As the company grew, they noticed a terrifying trend. More time spent coordinating, less time building. The communication lines between people grow exponentially as teams expand. Every connection point, every dependency on another team, creates drag. The book tells the story of Amazon's early software architecture, a single massive block of code nicknamed Obidos. To make any change, a developer had to coordinate with countless other teams, because one mistake could crash the entire website. To get a change approved in the central database, you had to appear before a powerful group of senior executives, known as the DB Cabal. The process was slow, frustrating, and soul-crushing. The first attempt to solve this birthed the now famous two-pizza team concept. The idea was breaking down large organizations into small, autonomous teams, no larger than what you could feed with two pizzas. Each team would own a piece of the business, have its own goals, and innovate freely without asking permission. Brilliant idea, but it had flaws. Finding leaders with deep expertise in every discipline, tech, business, finance, needed to run a fully autonomous team proved incredibly difficult. And the idea of a single fitness function, one number to measure team performance, was too simplistic and often hid the real story in the data. So the concept evolved into something more powerful and flexible, the single-threaded leader. A single-threaded leader is someone dedicated 100% to a single, major initiative. Their success gets judged by that one thing success, nothing else. They receive a separable, autonomous team to get the job done. As Dave Limp, Amazon's head of devices, famously said, "The best way to fail at inventing something is by making it somebody's part-time job." The book gives the perfect example, with the creation of Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA, the service letting third-party merchants use Amazon's warehouses and shipping. For over a year, the idea was stuck. It was a good idea, but just one of many priorities for several different teams. It was everyone's part-time job. Finally, senior leader Jeff Wilk asked Vice President Tom Taylor to drop all his other responsibilities and gave him a team to focus exclusively on this single project. Only then did it explode into the massive success it is today. Tom Taylor was one of the first single-threaded leaders. This organizational structure is the secret to Amazon's speed and its ability to enter so many different businesses. You don't have one person in charge of all software and another handling all hardware. You have a single-threaded leader for Alexa, another for Kindle, and another for a new grocery store concept. It minimizes dependencies and maximizes ownership and velocity. Now we have the right people and the right team structure, but how do these teams communicate their ideas effectively, especially to senior leadership? This brings us to the next mechanism, perhaps the most peculiar to outsiders, the ban on PowerPoint. Colin Breyer tells the story of being on a flight with Jeff Bezos in early 2004, discussing how frustrating and inefficient their senior leadership meetings had become. Someone would present a complex idea using a PowerPoint deck with sparse bullet points and slick graphics. The executives, eager to get to the heart of the matter, would interrupt with questions, derailing the presentation. The quality of decisions often depended more on the presenter's public speaking skills than the quality of the idea itself. On that flight, they read an essay by Yale professor Edward Tufte called The Cognitive Style of PowerPoint. Tufte argued that for complex, evidence-based analysis, bullet points are terrible. They flatten any sense of relative importance and hide how ideas interconnect. The solution? A simple, radical executive order. A few days later, on June 9, 2004, an email went out to the senior team with the subject line, "No PowerPoint presentations from now on." From that day forward, any idea presented at a senior meeting had to be in the form of a 6-page, narratively structured memo. A 6-pager. The reaction was near universal panic. People who'd spent their careers mastering slide decks now had to learn to write. But Jeff's reasoning was profound. He explained that the narrative structure of a good memo forces better thought and better understanding of what's more important than what, and how things are related. You can't just gloss over ideas in a well-written document. The process that evolved is what new Amazon employees find so bizarre. A meeting starts, greetings are exchanged, and then the room goes completely silent for 20 to 30 minutes. Everyone sits and reads the 6-page document. They take notes. They underline sentences. They formulate questions. Only after everyone finishes reading does the discussion begin. This mechanism levels the playing field. It doesn't matter if you're a charismatic presenter or a shy introvert. The ideas on the page are what matter. It forces the writer to truly think through their proposal, anticipate questions, and address counter-arguments. And it forces readers to engage deeply with the material before forming opinions. The result? Higher quality discussions, and, ultimately, better decisions. The six-pager isn't just a document. It's a mechanism for forcing clarity of thought. This brings us to the pinnacle of Amazon's invention process, the mechanism that gives this book its title, Working Backwards. This process is most often used for developing new products and is a direct application of the customer obsession principle. Most companies operate skills forward. They ask, what are we good at? What can we build with our existing skills and assets? Amazon asks a different question. What does the customer need or want? What would be the ideal customer experience? Then they work backwards from that ideal, even if it requires learning entirely new skills or building completely new capabilities. The tool they use for this is a special kind of narrative document, the PR/FAQ, that stands for Press Release and Frequently Asked Questions. Before a single line of code is written, before any hardware is designed, the team responsible for a new idea must write a press release. This isn't a technical document. It's a one-page, public-facing announcement written as if the product just launched. It describes, in simple, customer-friendly language, what the product is, what problem it solves, and why it's so compelling that a customer would leap out of their chair to buy it. If you can't write a compelling press release, it's a sign the idea isn't good enough. It's a mechanism for ensuring the customer benefit is clear and powerful from day one. Following the press release is the FAQ section. This is where the hard thinking happens. The FAQs divide into two types. First, there are external FAQs. Questions a customer or journalist might ask. How much does it cost? How does it work? Is it compatible with my other devices? Then there are internal FAQs. These are the tough, soul-searching questions the team and company leaders will ask. How big is the market for this? What are the per-unit economics? What are the biggest technical hurdles we need to overcome? What are our dependencies on third parties, and how will we manage them? Writing the PR FAQ is an intense, iterative process. A team might write 10 or more drafts, meeting with senior leaders multiple times to debate and refine the idea. The document forces you to resolve the hardest issues up front, on paper, where the cost of being wrong is low. It's far cheaper to edit a Word document than to recall 1 million physical devices. This process is the secret behind nearly every major Amazon invention since 2004, from Kindle to Alexa to AWS. Let's look at how it played out with Kindle. In 2004, the ebook market was tiny. The experience was awful. You had to read on a backlit computer screen, and the books were often more expensive than print editions. The Amazon team started by asking what the ideal reading experience would be. They worked backwards from the customer. The device should get out of the way, allowing the reader to become completely immersed in the book, just like with a physical copy. This vision led to a series of incredibly difficult decisions that a skills-forward company would never have made. First, Amazon was an e-commerce company, not a hardware company. They knew nothing about building devices. But to control the end-to-end experience, they realized they had to build their own. Outsourcing it would mean surrendering control of the most important part of the customer's journey. So they decided to learn a new skill. The PRFAQ process forced them to solve other hard problems. How do you make the screen easy on the eyes? They chose the new, unproven e-ink technology, even though it was only black and white and had a slow page turn. Why? Because it mimicked paper and was readable in direct sunlight. It served the reader. How do you make getting books easy? They rejected the standard model of side-loading from a computer. They wanted the device to be constantly connected. This led to the creation of WhisperNet, a free 3G connection built into the device, allowing customers to buy and download a book in under 60 seconds. This had never been done before and was incredibly controversial and expensive, but it was the right thing for the customer. Finally, the price. To make ebooks compelling, they priced bestsellers at $9.99, a price so low that Amazon actually lost money on each one sold initially. It was a massive, long-term bet that a great experience and low prices would create a huge new market. And it worked. The Kindle sold out in less than 6 hours on its first day and went on to transform the publishing industry forever. The story of AWS, or Amazon Web Services, is perhaps the most stunning example of Amazon's invention machine at work. It shows how the company could use its principles to create a massive, industry-defining business that had, on the surface, absolutely nothing to do with its core retail business. The seed of the idea came from the Amazon Associates program, which allowed third-party websites to link to Amazon products and earn a fee. In 2002, Colin Breyer's team launched an experimental feature. Instead of just giving affiliates pre-formatted links, they gave them the raw product data in a format called XML. This allowed developers to build their own custom shopping experiences using Amazon's data. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Developers started creating applications the team had never imagined. It was a light bulb moment. They realized they'd stumbled upon a whole new class of customer, the software developer. Around the same time, Amazon was deep in the process of breaking apart its monolithic Albedos software architecture into smaller, independent services. They were getting really good at building and running scalable, reliable infrastructure services like storage, databases, and computing power. It was, as one leader put it, undifferentiated heavy lifting, the hard, foundational work that every internet company had to do, but that didn't differentiate their product in customers' eyes. The team, now led by Andy Jassy, put these two ideas together. What if they took the infrastructure services they'd built for themselves and offered them to the world, allowing any developer, even a student in a dorm room, to have access to the same world-class computing infrastructure as Amazon? They used the working backwards process to define the products. They wrote PR/FAQs for services like S3, the simple storage service, and EC2, the elastic compute cloud. The process forced them to solve incredibly hard problems. For example, the initial pricing idea for S3 was a simple, tiered monthly subscription. But through the intense debate of the PR/FAQ process, they realized they couldn't possibly predict all the ways developers would use the service. A subscription model would be simple, but it wouldn't align with their costs. So they invented a new model: pay-as-you-go, utility-style pricing. You pay only for what you use, down to the byte of storage and the bit of data transfer. This was revolutionary. It completely changed the economics of starting a technology company. Before AWS, if you had a new idea for a website or app, you had to buy expensive servers, rent space in a data center, and hire a team to manage it all. It was a massive, upfront capital investment. With AWS, you could start with just a credit card and scale your infrastructure as your business grew. It democratized entrepreneurship and unleashed a wave of innovation that created companies like Airbnb, Slack, and Netflix's streaming service. The established tech giants, Microsoft, Google, IBM, all had the technology and capital to do this. But they were looking at the world through a skills-forward lens. They were focused on selling software licenses and enterprise hardware. Amazon, by starting with the customer, the developer, and working backwards, saw a need no one else was addressing. They were willing to be misunderstood for years, to build a business that looked nothing like their core retail operation, because they had conviction it was the right thing for a new and important customer. And in doing so, they didn't just create a new product, they created an entirely new industry. So what can we take away from all of this? When you look at the stories of Kindle, Prime, and AWS, it becomes clear that Amazon's success isn't about having a once-in-a-generation genius like Jeff Bezos, though that certainly helps. It's about building a culture and a set of systems that allow great ideas to emerge, to be tested rigorously, and to be executed with relentless focus. It's a machine for turning customer obsession into invention. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the idea of mechanisms over good intentions. It's such a simple, yet profound shift in thinking. It's not enough to want to be customer-focused. You have to build a process, like the PRFAQ, that forces you to start with the customer every single time. It's not enough to want to hire the best people. You have to build a mechanism, like the bar raiser program, that guards the hiring bar against the natural pressures of urgency and bias. These practices force you to slow down to go fast. The six-pager requires deep thought up front, but it leads to much faster, higher-quality discussions. The PR/FAQ feels like a lot of work before you can start building, but it saves you from wasting years building the wrong thing. In a world that prizes speed above all else, Amazon has shown that the fastest way to get to the right answer is to be incredibly deliberate and methodical in how you ask the question. This way of thinking requires a different kind of courage. It requires the courage to be misunderstood for long periods of time. It requires the patience to invest in ideas that might not pay off for a decade. And it requires the humility to admit when you're wrong and to learn from your failures. The book mentions the Amazon Fire Phone, a massive, expensive flop. But the lessons learned from that failure in hardware and software integration were directly applied to the creation of another device, the Amazon Echo, which became a runaway success. Failure isn't the opposite of success. At Amazon, it's a necessary step on the path to it. So how can you start being a little more Amazonian wherever you are? You don't have to transform your entire organization overnight. You can start small. First, the next time you have a new idea, try writing a press release for it. Just one page. Before you do anything else, force yourself to articulate the customer benefits so clearly that it's instantly compelling. This single exercise can bring more clarity than weeks of meetings. Second, in your next team meeting where a complex decision is being made, ban PowerPoint. Ask for a simple, one-page narrative memo to be distributed at the start. Sit in silence and read it. See how it changes the quality of the conversation. And third, the next time something goes wrong, don't just fix the immediate problem. Ask why 5 times. Dig until you find the true root cause. Then don't just promise to try harder next time. Ask yourself, what mechanism can we build to make sure this mistake never happens again? That was a summary of Working Backwards by Colin Breyer and Bill Carr. We've covered the core framework and some incredible stories today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only scratch the surface. The real power of this book is in the details, the nuanced examples, the behind-the-scenes debates, the deep dives into how these processes actually feel in practice. This summary is designed to give you a map, to show you if this is a journey worth taking. If any of the ideas we've discussed today, customer obsession, long-term thinking, building mechanisms, have sparked something in you, then I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning Amazon's secrets. It's about learning a new way to think, a new way to build, and a new way to lead. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to click that subscribe button and give this a thumbs up. It tells us we're on the right path, and it ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another world-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.